I also have the agenda I can share too, if you would like that.
Okay, that would be great. I pulled mine up, but okay, I'm gonna go ahead and call the meeting to order at 12:36 and ask Secretary Source to do the roll call.
Thank you, Chair. Vice Chair Nelsestun.
Here.
Trustee Ambrose is excused. Trustee Evans,
Here.
Trustee Mitchell,
Here.
and Chair Fasana.
Here. Thank you. We do
Let me
have.
get that. Shared the wrong screens. Let me get the right screen up there. There we go.
All right, thank you. Okay, so our next item is the consent agenda, which includes the approval of the October 28, 2024 meeting minutes. Any questions or discussion before I entertain a motion? I had one typo at the very bottom where it says chair comp adjourned the meeting. I
Oh,
think.
sorry about that.
Okay, no worries. I think that was the only thing that I picked up in there. Anybody else have anything on the minutes?
No.
Okay, then I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes for October 28th, 2024.
So moved. This is Gail.
Thank you.
Second.
And do we have? Okay.
Second.
And I
Thank
think
you.
I'll abstain because I don't think I was there for that October one.
Okay,
Evan, is that right? Okay.
I think so. Yeah. Okay, and then do you just do a roll call, Evan?
Yeah, I could do a roll call.
Makes it easier when we're all online.
No problem. Chair Fasana,
Aye.
Vice Chair Nelsestun,
Aye.
Trustee Evans,
Aye.
and Trustee Mitchell.
Abstain.
Motion passes.
Thank you. We'll move right into reports and discussion items then. And the first item is the internal audit update.
Yeah, Chair Fasana, Ryan told me he was going to try to make it today. He is not currently on. I can give a brief. Well, the report in the doc, it kind of speaks for itself. It's one page, it's very short. There's been some struggles to get documentation to the right place. They've got the documentation and are working on conducting the audit. And I'm referring specifically to the HR. Let me pull this up real quick. HR audits, and specifically the payroll controls review. One of the things that's hard about this one is, as you all may remember, we used to use an external, the USSE used to do our payroll, and USSE no longer offered that service. So we actually had to do payroll. We had to move payroll to internal last year. So during the time that the documents they're looking for the audit happened. So part of the challenge has been getting the documentation from our payroll from a third-party vendor. We've gotten it. It's just not, it has not gone as quick as we were hoping to get a robust update to you all. But as you could see, really short and sweet report in there on it. And I think for the next EGTC meeting, we'll have a very robust report for you around where we're at with the payroll control review audit, as well as the journal vouchers controls one as well. Is there any, I mean, if Ryan hops on during our meeting, I think he can answer some questions, but is there anything I can help answer for you on there?
I don't have anything.
Okie dokie. Would you like to just go to the next item then?
Yep. So the second item then was some discussion around Board of Trustees needs assessment and the process to fill board vacancies. So Trustee Betty Comp has resigned her position on the board, And so we need to make some decisions about that because I believe her term expired the end of June. So at this point, rather than fill a seat, if we could even fill a seat before then, we're most likely just looking at filling that seat in the next round. So I'll let Secretary Source kind of update all of us on that process and talk about what next steps.
Thank you, Chair Fasana. So as you remember, last year, we reviewed our board statement on vacancies, and we had a robust conversation about a process. I wanted to include the policy in here for you all as a reminder of what we tried to what we're looking for to reflect in our when we're considering vacancies. I will scroll down past the policy. If there's folks who have questions about the policy, we can get into it. But one of the things that we have to do per the new governing laws is create a needs assessment of the board. So in order to create a needs assessment, we kind of have to look at what we have, right? So here's the current roster of our members. And as you can see, we have dates of expiring trustee, the time of the trustees' terms, alumni status, race, ethnicity, gender, and then some notes around where they live and area of work. And the only reason why I mention where they live is because one of the things that we are to consider per our bylaws is geographical diversity. And so included in here is a list of our members. And what I kind of noticed through, oops, I'll fix that on Viviana's.
Am I the only one that can't see what you're showing, Evan?
I was just gonna say, I think we
Oh.
need to share your screen. I mean, we know where
My
you are in the document.
apologies. I
Okay.
forgot I unshared it. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I'm ready to go. So now I feel a little silly. Sorry about that. Can you see that now?
Yeah, and also,
Yeah.
Evan, Dr. Peters just popped in and said he's here to see if we have any questions for him or want to discuss anything with him. I don't know if we should pause
Yeah.
to see if
That makes
anybody
sense.
does that first. Hi, Dr. Peters.
Hello.
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 So
Did anything you wanted to share with us or just popping in?
Yeah, literally just sort of popping in. I've had just some conversations with some of you, and you kind of all are, I think, aware of things that are happening here, and from everything from the federal level and grants, all the way down to looking at our budget, early budget looks. So a lot going on. We're going through it, and just want y'all to know I'm always available, even though if I can't come to all the meetings all the time. So anyway, here I am.
Thank you. I know you've been very busy lately, as always, but this last month has been particularly long for everyone. Did anybody else have
Yes.
anything you want to check in with Dr. Peters about while we have his ear? No?
Just
Okay.
giving you all our support.
One thing well, I'll just fill you in about that later. But thank you all. We've had some email conversations, and I appreciate all the work that you all are doing, because when things are heavy and happening at the university, the trustees are involved as well. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Yeah.
Thanks, Evan.
No problem.
Text me if you need me for anything.
All right, thanks. Well, all right. So here's I will fix the seating thing. I don't know what happened there, but we have this is our current roster. And as you can see, it has our trustees' names, terms, alumni status, race, ethnicity, gender, and then notes. The notes are mostly around professional area of work as well as where folks live. And the only reason why we mention where folks live is for that geographical diversity. And so, as you could see, I think we have a good balance of alumni status, race, ethnicity. One of the things from my perspective we're really lacking is a outside I-5 corridor. We have a couple who are outside the I-5 corridor. You know, I would like to think that Falls City and Willamina are a little outside the I-5 corridor, but there's no one from the central or east side of the state. And I think, you know, that's something that we got to be aware of and maybe be mindful of. As well as, you know, I don't know if there's other perspectives that you all are thinking we should be mindful of trying to bring to the table. I think, you know, if you look at other boards in the state of Oregon, ours, you know, I think does the best job of representing like a diverse perspective when it comes to what Oregon looks like, and having that represented on our board. But we could always do better. So wanted you all to see that as part of that conversation and reflection. You know, part of this governing process as well is I've had a survey available on the board website, a form basically. And one of the questions it asks are what are identities or areas of focus that are lacking from the board, and I haven't really gotten much feedback from the campus community on that. And I think some of that is because, you know, it's one link on a website and we don't actively solicit the best as much as we probably could. And the other is, I think, you know, most people are pretty satisfied of the makeup of our board. I've never heard folks complain about that when it comes to the board of trustees. You know, I've heard other complaints, but not about, not about, you know, the diversity and and the differing perspectives on our board. So I don't know if folks have feedback to give. I could stop sharing so we could see each other, but I did want to give an opportunity for you all to provide some feedback on whether it be areas of focus you want us to think about in this recruitment. I can tell you realistically, the next appointment for timing purposes, the next appointment where we could reasonably get someone in front of the legislature for consideration is September. And so we would be looking to fill, it would be because we'd be, Betty's seat would be timed out by then. So it would be a full 4-year term for an at-large member that would get there. It'd probably be mid-September. So right around the same time as we had all of our trustees this year. And so we have time to think about this. I think we need to get recommendations. I want to say recommendations to the governor by April. And so we have a few weeks to think about that.
Okay. Kari, did you have any thoughts or things you want to share about how the process went last year?
I will after a bit. Gail raised her hand, so let's have her go first. And Leah went off mute too, so maybe Leah had something to say too.
Yeah, so I'm wondering if we could like put our board composition in a format that shows attributes that are specifically named in the new statute or regulation. That Evan mentioned, one of those being geographical diversity. I'm sure that, you know, the rules read with certain attributes, and then we came up with other attributes ourselves as a board at the retreat. And so maybe those could also appear on this assessment. So we have kind of a side-by-side rounded out view of what's required by the legislators, what we thought we needed as a board when we talked about board composition, to make sure we're full. And I don't know if there's a format even requirement, but things that come to mind: the geographic diversity, the stakeholder seats. I think, you know, that there were some rules around that. And then now that we know Betty is resigning and we no longer have Cease on the board, it seems like a new gap for us is having that elected official or somebody with a relationship with elected officials. And so and other things that might be included could be things like the first generation experience, Hispanic, being a Hispanic serving university. We have appropriate representation for that. We are a big, you know, educator university. Now we're lacking, you know, educators. And so I'm just trying to think of a way to round out our needs assessment that checks the boxes for regulatory, but also is tailored to WOU. Because I don't think there's any prohibition for us also having our own attributes that we're looking for. So anyway, I've lost track of what the regulations call for on the board.
I would say that Trustee Schwartzler is the new mayor of Independence, so she isn't elected. She's not a legislator, so we lost Susan and Betty, both who had legislative experience, which I think is key. So I think what you're saying is very valid. And then for educators, Trustee Larios is
Okay.
one.
Okay.
But you're right. I mean, um, we no longer, you know, we lost two at-large members who were former educators too. So that's also something to think about. We got
Yeah,
a
my
lot
thinking,
more. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
oh, I was going to say, my thinking is right in alignment with what Gail said, and really just creating a true competency grid where you have all of those elements required, and then I think what the board thinks is important, and then we can see it gridded out. I think that will help us have the discussion. You know, the other thing that occurred to me, Evan, as you were flashing that up, is the number of people terming at the same time in 2026 is really significant.
Yeah. Now, a number of new members are terming in 2026 because they took other people's partial terms. So I think the governor's team will probably just renew them if they're interested. But there are some people who are terming out in 2026. So it is something we do need to be identifying people for that year, because it is going to be a significant loss of our leadership.
Yeah, maybe there should be an indication of who's eligible for reappointment or not.
I mean, I'm happy. I feel like I have capacity in the next week and a half to actually get this done and included in the full board meeting docket. So we could, if you would like, have a bit of a discussion in the public full term one about our needs assessment, which I think could help with some transparency too, of just us in a more public setting than a Zoom call having this conversation too. So thank you for that. I'm happy to add the eligibility part too.
Yes, thank you, Evan. I think that would be helpful to have for a board meeting.
Okay.
Can I ask a follow-up question, maybe of either of you, Leo or Gail? Is a competency grid an actual thing, like a tool you can Google and see what it looks like? Or is it just this concept laid out a little bit differently?
Yeah, it's a very much a governance tool for a lot of boards. But and it's not always the same thing as a needs assessment.
Mm.
So, because the competency grid lays out what we have, and where there might be gaps. So the gap part is where you get to the needs assessment. But Leah, you may have a different view of that.
No, exactly the same.
And Evan, is there anything specific about how we do a needs assessment, or we just have to have one?
We just have to have one. In fact, I'm pretty sure when we just asked this committee and the larger board to have a conversation about the needs of the board, that met the requirement. But I think we could be a lot more intentional than just having like a conversation, a theoretical conversation, right? And so I think that's kind of why I wanted to ask you all of what you would like to see to help facilitate a really good conversation of where you all want to see representation go on this board.
Great.
But to be honest with you, I think it is a barrier that the governor's team needs like 2.5 months because it just feels like it's a lot of time. And I get that they have to do their things and they have a lot of people they have to vet, but it is a challenging dynamic that they need so much time.
Yeah, I actually think if you said we need names in April, this is like a now thing, right? Because we need to have the conversations and narrow it to three, and that so um yeah, it feels even though what the end result won't be till September. And I think sort of like last time we can be thinking about those building a list for 2026, as we go, not a either or, but a both and even in our conversations with people.
I will double check that date. It might be later than April. It might be May, but
Okay, that would be
I'll
a
double
little
check that.
later.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. And then as Kari mentioned, everyone who applied last year and didn't get selected, their applications are still theoretically in the system, in the governor's system. So we could also, in our process, you know, we can reach out to those folks as well as invite new folks too. It's all what you all are comfortable with. And so I say that to say starting out, we have, 5 applicants that weren't selected. That could be part of that consideration, many of which Kari personally, interviewed. Um, there might be 2 that you didn't, that just were at large applicants, but everyone else you interviewed. And then there was 1 or 2 who dropped out for whatever reason during the process that we can reach out to them too. So I do feel comfortable. We have a robust pool just starting out, but we can think about who else we should be bringing alongside with those folks.
Yeah, I think I really like the idea of obviously trying to prepare for the 1 seat, but really looking at 2026 and how many are we going to have to fill. So I do like the idea of doing an and kind of really thinking about both.
Okay. Is there, does anyone else have any more feedback?
Only other feedback, right, is in our statement. We really talk about quality, the 3.3.1, commitment to public education, demonstrated collaborative leadership, all those things that are hard to put on a competency grid, perhaps, like who's making that determination? Is it even on a grid? But those are like I think the fundamental qualities before these other factors. And I just want to also caution that whatever grid, including the one we have right now, doesn't become a step towards tokenizing, right? Like, oh, we're missing this person that fits this, and we're going to do it just to fill that, right? So I think we need to base in those qualifications in our statement, even though they're, like I'm just repeating myself. So just put that on the record, and I'm happy with how we're moving forward.
Yeah, no, I totally agree that centering all of these conversations in like the values that this institution has, right? And as a trustee, you're gonna have to, like, we're looking for people who, value public higher education at an access university, right? And that's supporting the populations that we support. First and foremost, before any other conversations, right? So sure. Well, if we can, Chair Fasano, I'd like to move to the 360 conversation.
Yes, let's move to item number 3.
Great. We're going to spend a lot of time on this, just so you'll know, because here and moving forward, let me share. Well, let me start by saying, if you remember, last year, the board changed our performance evaluation of the university president, and one of the changes we made was to change our comprehensive 360 evaluation to every 3 years. And at the time, we talked about how that would mean that we'd have to do one this year. Well, the time has come that it is this year now. So I wanted to start having that conversation, because the more I research what the expectation is of best practices around a 360, the more I'm realizing how much time it's going to take. And so starting now will probably give us the best chance to have a really good product before before the president's annual review time in June. So before we go into like specifically about the comprehensive 360, I just want to walk through, with your permission, just want to walk through the evaluation of the president. I think if I could go back to last year, knowing what I know now, and this is probably a flaw of this is my first higher education job, I would have added more to our evaluation policy around a comprehensive review, because there's not a lot here. But we have a lot about guiding. Go ahead, sorry, Chair Fasana.
Nope, I don't have anything.
Okay. We have guiding principles around evaluating the president. And in our annual evaluation, we talk about a retrospective assessment and then a prospective assessment. And I think, moving forward, I could probably work with you all and the president to make this language a little better, to have clear expectations of what we want the president to fill out in a self evaluation as part of his review. But here are examples that we talk about in, like, these are our self-evaluation here. So, list of the major institutional achievements over the past assessment period, dashboard metrics, review of the president's relationship with the board, review of challenges both personally and institutionally. So as you can see, these are all part of his self-evaluation. We will still require that of him this year, even though we're doing a comprehensive 360, just so folks know. His self-evaluation is due to the chair and myself on April 1st. So coming up. But in this conversation, we talked about a comprehensive evaluation. And one of the things that we changed about it is really included more of a diverse perspective in this comprehensive assessment. So we do write, formal input from stakeholders, president's proposed overall direction, additional components. One of the things that I've talked to the president about in this evaluation is including notes to the university. So the part of the review will be reviewing communications to the university and goals around those communications, as well as communications to leadership as well. I think are important parts of that review. But so let me share a different document here because this is one that I didn't include in the docket because it's all really high level at this point. But after the self-assessment is sent to the board chair reviews it, puts notes together, and then you all, as you've experienced, have an opportunity to provide feedback to the president. And that's our annual review process. So in addition, as I mentioned, the comprehensive review, and let me share this document. All right, I can zoom in too if folks need it. Can folks see that? Yep, okay,
Maybe zoom a little bit more even. Thank you.
no problem. So the more I've been reviewing kind of best practices, especially as AGB suggests it, the more robust these reviews appear. So they say best practices between 20 to 60 stakeholders. So that's a huge range, obviously. But they also gave me a set of questions for us to go over before we start a self-evaluation. That's really one of the things that I wanted to do today. So discussion for the following question, following questions when the board first contemplates a 360 review will help ensure a satisfying outcome. So first question is really, what do we expect to learn from this broad assessment? And I don't know if we want to discuss robustly here, or if these are questions that you all reflect on and maybe email to me. Either way is fine. But I can read out kind of the questions and then we can kind of figure out next steps here. So what do we hope to learn? How will university stats, trends, and leadership figure into this review? Do we hire a consultant? Best practices suggest a consultant. When I first started thinking about this, I didn't think about hiring an outside consultant to do this. So I think that's a board decision. I have reached out to AGB for a quote to see how much that would cost, just for you all to consider that. So if we do hire a consultant, what qualifications? A lot of the suggestions are there are consultants who do this work, who have been executives at public universities, and they suggest that's a best practice is someone who's been in the shoes of the president as the consultant who does it. But I think that's really up to us. What does the consultant need to know about the status of the university and the president's leadership of that enterprise? And then who should the consultant interview? And I want to emphasize that these are suggested areas and that we wouldn't interview everyone. It would be a selection of these folks, but I listed out individual board members, board of trustees members, foundation staff and foundation board, senior leadership, faculty and staff senate members. And then under academic affairs, we have deans, department heads, and the enrollment management team as strategic folks that I probably suggest that those would be good areas for whoever's leading this to reach out to. And then on the student affairs side, department heads, and students, student leaders on the student side, parents, alumni, donors, business leaders, and I broke it out a couple different associations that are local. So the Monmouth Independence Chamber, Monmouth Business Association, Independence Downtown Association. Maybe we think about Salem, since we now have a WOU Salem campus that's up and open and in some ways really thriving. So we could think about reaching out to the Salem Chamber too. And then local civic leaders, so Monmouth Independent City Council, mayors, city managers, legislators, kind of a suggested list. we have, you know, what work product do we need from the consultant reviewer? If we were going to go from for a consultant, what action should we be able to take based on the review? And then what steps should we take to ensure confidentiality? So those are really the questions that they kind of suggested we reflect on before we kind of go too far down. And then lastly, before I stop talking, they also suggested that we kind of they suggested we create a subcommittee of this committee that are kind of leads, a subcommittee of a subcommittee that are leads of this, so that we don't just wait to check in every EGTC meeting, because we only meet 4 times a year. So I did reach out to Kari to kind of ask if she was comfortable leading this process, but if there are other folks who want to work on it too, I think if we can get 2 to 3 folks from the board that are interested in leading this work, it'll help keep me, that can help keep the time management of this throughout the next few months. I think that would be helpful to make sure that this is a successful process. So that's kind of really some of those best practice questions. I don't know if folks have suggestions or ideas based on that.
I think I would like a chance to kind of look at the questions and reflect on them, and I would also like to get some input from Jerry. So I don't know if there's, you know, a shorter time frame, but that we could all send you sort of our answers to the questions, and maybe you could, you know, summarize all of our responses or list them out separately if you want, but so that I could kind of see what everybody else's input, but I'd rather have some time to sort of reflect on it. And yeah, it is a lot, and I, in my experience, it's always been an outside consultant that's done them, and I'm usually one of the stakeholders. It's always had to do an interview or something, but it is a heavy workload, so I don't know how anybody could take it on to do the process. So I think that we'll need to talk about cost and how much and where that might be budgeted if we have that, and all those things.
Yeah, Chair, I'm happy to send this out today to everyone. And if we maybe give everyone a week to get me back suggestions, so we can give a bit of an update at the board meeting of at least if there's a subcommittee, who's the makeup of the subcommittee, and then kind of announce that this is being undertaken. And to be honest with you all, this is the first time we've actually considered doing a comprehensive 360 in a long time. So I think the president is nervous about what people think why we're doing it. So it might, if we do it at the board, make an announcement at the board meeting, I think it might alleviate some of that misconception that he did anything wrong to warrant a 360, that this is part of the process, and that we're trying to formalize practices that have been in the, you know, that have been in the board documents, but because of a number of transitions at the executive position over the last, you know, 5-6 years, hasn't been part of the norm, you know, for half a decade, which is the answer. But I think he has a little, not fear, but just a little concern about perception of why this is happening, why we're conducting a 360.
Yeah.
There might
sorry.
be,
Go ahead, Gail.
I'm sorry, should have raised my hand.
Go ahead.
I'm just thinking about a couple things. One, in the board statement, there's a comment that no input will be anonymous. And yet we're looking for confidentiality. So that I'm blurry on what that means in practice. The other thing is, when we hired the president, we had stakeholder focus groups, which might be an efficient way, to first of all use kind of that presidential search as a rubric, for this 360. What were we looking for in a president, and do the stakeholders think that manifested in reality? So that's another thought. And then a third thought was some of this information that we're seeking might already be found in the climate survey. And so that could help reduce some of the, I don't know, redundancy of doing some parts of this assessment.
Yeah, I mean, in order to get real feedback from the community, we obviously would have to make sure that that part was confidential. So I guess I need to review the board statement and make sure that we're not in conflict there. And if so, how we can fix that, because if people don't feel safe to truly share, we're not, it's going to be a waste of time. So thank you for mentioning that.
Yeah, and we want to be careful not to have anything turn into a kind of complaint that needs to be appropriately routed through another channel, per existing policy.
I wonder if we say no, because they might be so small that it'd be easy to trace. I was gonna say, if we say like a student affairs, in the student affairs area head focus group, this came up, but there's probably only gonna be 10 to 15 people who attend, so it might not be as confidential. We're gonna have to figure that out. The way I kind of envisioned it, is setting up times for a like facilitated conversation with folks. And then if people feel like they need follow-up at an individual level, so if they don't feel comfortable sharing something in a facilitated group, that whomever's doing the interviews can follow up in an individual capacity. And I don't know how often that would happen, to be honest.
Yeah,
Well,
I
and I
do.
think I was gonna say if we hire someone to do a 360, they may have some best practices that they bring to us, and then we can consider those as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the ones that I participated in, it's always been just a link to a survey with some questions with kind of open-ended answers. But those have been the ones I've participated in, like a consultant, sends a link with questions and they've answered those. So I don't know. I've never done a focus group one.
I think AGB at least has suggested that we don't go the route of a survey because it might not capture as much information as a focus group does for a number of reasons. But when I talked to the president, he said that in his past experiences at the past universities he served at, that's how they've always done it, our surveys, that people participate. And then one of the challenges is no one sees the results of the survey. So then there's the question of, well, what was determined and what happened, basically. So there's also that that we'll have to think about.
Yeah, I think to me, and I know I do not have, it sounds like the level of experience you all do with 360 reviews, but I do have experience with the concept of starting small and not thinking we're going to go from like mediocre or no 360 reviews to like the most rigorous,
Right.
you know, all the recommendations from AGB, you know, like all the options with the most stakeholders as our first step, right? So how do we find a consultant who's willing to work with us to say, hey, we recognize that might be a best practice and we're going to do this, but we're also going to be more in the middle of like, you know, of something else, because we're learning and we have a time schedule right now and, you know, all those things. I don't want to, I hope, and maybe I'm clarifying this with you all, that we're not today setting up the exact procedure and the questions and the rigor that we'll use every time, that we're like walking into these waters, finding a good consultant and learning from a process where, oh, I'm repeating myself again. Where sometimes it's the most rigor and sometimes it's good enough.
Mhm.
Thank
think
you,
that's
Kari. That
yeah,
makes it seem less overwhelming.
yeah, no,
And we can start with a process that will probably evolve every 3 years when we do it. That we don't have to have the perfect process right now. So thank you for keeping it real for us.
And in keeping it real, I need at least one partner or two to work on this. So think about that too.
Yes, I would help you, Kari. I think that I can be part of that subcommittee.
Cool.
It'd be nice if we had one more person too. And that can be either from this group or from the whole board, right? Or from right,
mhm.
be somebody else as well. So
It might actually be easier if it's not from this committee, because then we wouldn't have a quorum of a committee. And then we
oh yeah,
wouldn't have to abide by public meeting laws.
Great idea.
So something to think about. I mean, it makes total sense that the chair and the vice chair are the leads on this subcommittee. I mean, that's actually one of the best practices that they suggest, but just with our quirky public meeting laws, it might also be, I think there might be a way to exempt some of the conversations because it's about the evaluation of the president, but if we just get a third trustee um, that's not on this committee, then we don't have to worry about it.
okay. So I think for moving forward, and I do have to pop off here pretty soon, but if we talk about this or kind of say where we're at, what we're starting with at the next full board meeting, and then maybe any interested parties could email you after that
Yeah.
board meeting. Because then they'll have some context for what we're asking.
Okay. Any other feedback for this agenda item?
I think just if there's these are great notes that you shared on screen, but if there's in all of our access to all the AGB things, if there's an article or two that is good for where you've learned all this,
There's a
I
whole
would
book.
appreciate the learning. Oh, a whole book. Okay, never
Yeah,
mind.
I'll send you a link to the digital book. There's a whole book. Half of it's about just general assessments, and then there's like a third of it's about the annual, and then a third of it's about a comprehensive.
Well, thank you for reading it.
Yeah, but I mean, your point is well taken about like how they represent all the universities, whether it's a 50,000 student university all the way down to a 1,000 student university, and obviously the needs of those two universities are very different. And what a comprehensive review would look like are very different. So I know a couple people have to hop off around 1:30, so I think I can cover the goal setting. And then one of the one of the things you all suggested to me at the last meeting was to get a couple governance updates. So I do have a couple interesting, fun governance resources for you all if you would like me to share. Real quick, let me share my screen. And it doesn't
Sorry, I
all
need a minute. I'll be right back.
okay. It doesn't all require you to read. So if you need break from just reading a lot, there's a couple other fun ones. So can folks see this? Yep. All right. So in our newest trustee magazine, which I again have all your copies, and I know I need to just go into the system and update because a few of you gave me permission to do that. So I'll do that this week. But I have your copies I'll hand out at the meeting. In the newest version, there's a couple really interesting articles that I would encourage you all to check out. One of them is around evaluating board retreats. And it has some really interesting takeaways around how to make board retreats a little more effective and efficient. That I think you've all asked over the last couple of years I've been here for some of that framework. So I'd encourage you all to look at that. And there's a really good article around the champions of governance, which is around how do we as boards and individual board members keep focused on our responsibilities. And it again points to that the ship, the helicopter conversation in a lot of detail. So I'd encourage you all. They're pretty quick reads. So you all have access to the website digital version, so you can access this now, but I do have your magazines that I'll hand you all at the next board meeting. Additionally, there's a podcast, and you can subscribe in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Audible, however you all listen to podcasts. And the last podcast issue, or the last podcast episode a couple weeks ago, was about board independence and neutrality. And I think it's a really important conversation, especially, with the change of leadership in Washington and some of the things that have been happening, as well as over the last year with donors trying to influence how universities, everything from the conduct of their students and faculty to how they deliver curriculum, has been people outside of universities have tried to influence using their power. So it's a really great conversation that I think you all, if you have a little extra time and are interested in learning more about governance issues, there's a number of really interesting podcasts there, something that you can do walking or however you enjoy your podcast. I do a lot of podcasting when I'm walking and cleaning. So, yeah. And then lastly, I want to flag the board bot for you all. And I know Ellen, Dr. Chafee at our last meeting did it, but this is getting really cool. And it has a lot of resources. So I'm just going to use the what is shared governance, but you could type it in and it uses AI to kind of pull together a really decent answer usually. And what I appreciate more about their answers is they actually have additional like articles and resources that you can actually follow up with. So, and because we're a member, you just click it and it'll pull the resource right up for you to review. And all of these are free for you to download. And they all have, executive summaries that make it really quick and easy to find what you need. So, couple of real fun resources for you all to use when we're thinking about governance and serving. How do we improve our board? So, next time I'll get a couple other resources for you all to use, but I would encourage you to access the AGB website. It has a lot of really great stuff on it, and they have a lot of information that is just super helpful. As for other goals, I haven't um, I haven't gotten that framework you had asked for finished, and I apologize for that. I've kind of been doing double duty the last couple of months, as you might know, our government relations director, Rico, got a job with the Secretary of State. So I've kind of been doing the interim there with this, and I just a lot going on. So I promise I will get that done ASAP. It's on my to-do list, but I haven't got that done yet. I do think if you're all supportive of it in your individual committees, reviewing charters is probably something. I know Trustee Evans and I had talked about that with FAC, especially with some of the individual items we've had to discuss, but it might for ASAC as well as EGT, as well as this body, it might be a good time for us to review our charters this year. Something we could pretty easily do. And then, next meeting in about a month, a little more than a month, I can have that framework for us to really dig in, including the annual hygiene items that you all have to do in your committees anyway. So I can make sure that you have that well before this next meeting.
Thank you so much, Evan. That was a lot of stuff. And yes, you have a lot on your desk right now. So I totally understand that. And I think that the committees can start reviewing their charters, and we can continue to look at that goal setting sheet. And with that, I'm gonna have to take off here. So thank you all so much for being here and for all the work you do and leading your committees and just supporting WOU, and go Wolves.
Right.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, thank you all.
Good to see you all. See you
Good to see you.
in person soon.
Yeah.
Bye.